Csónakház, a Magyar Canoe Szövetség hivatalos podcast műsora. Legendák, bajnokok, reménységek és minden, ami kajakkenu.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Boathouse, the Kayak Canoe podcast, the official podcast of the Hungarian Canoe Federation. I am Viktor Kurilla. Those of you who are watching and not just listening to us can see that we are not broadcasting from our usual studio, but directly from Balint, Turkey, where Bálint Kopasz is also training alongside the canoe national team. Our Olympic champion has been here for several weeks, collecting the kilometers for this season. That is why in the next few minutes we will be asking him about the period after the Olympics, his preparation in Turkey, and his goals for this year. Balint, we're glad to see you here in Belek at the training camp in Turkey. You've been here for a long time. I've been here for a few days. And what I've seen of you in these few days, and you can either confirm or deny it, is that you're self-assured, you're in a good mood, you're focused, and you're working with full force. You're bursting with energy. How much of that is true? How are you feeling? And I'll ask it this way. How is Bálint Kopasz feeling as a person?
Well, the good weather has finally arrived after 2.5 weeks. I was really happy about that because I don't like doing kayak water training in cold weather. So that made me feel really good. And despite the bumpy start in the first 2.5 weeks, we were able to start a very good training regimen. We were able to maintain 2 water sessions a day, which is obviously very important at this time of year, since we couldn't kayak all winter. The focus is on gathering basic kilometers, which we've done. So after the first 3 weeks, we've started the speed training sessions. And this great temperature that has come in, around 25 degrees, even showing 30 sometimes, but it wasn't that high, is absolutely optimal for us to increase explosiveness and do the speed training sessions that my coach prescribed. I feel like I've been able to do it with good quality so far, and that will be important for the future, because of course, the spring water training camps are about laying the foundation for the summer season, and for good form in the summer.
Obviously, the situation is a bit bad now, in that this is pretty much the only day when the weather is a bit worse, but in the past few days, the weather was really good here. This environment where you are seems very impressive. This training camp location, how do you feel here? How comfortable are you in this environment? You have been here for a long time now.
Well, last year I spent 5 weeks on this, let's say, river section, and now I've been here for 5 weeks again, but this year I'll be here for 7 weeks straight. Last year the situation was much better because, for one, the bad weather didn't last as long as it did at the beginning this time, and also there were 4 or 5 times more kayakers and canoeists on the water, especially the foreign nations, who have boosted the number of people at this camp. I'm not happy about this because the water has become very choppy. There are a lot of catamarans and motorboats creating waves. And a huge amount of reed fragments are unfortunately all along the river section. The waves generated by the coaches, motorboats, are not good for this. The many reeds get stuck on my rudder and pull me all over the place. The problem isn't that it slows me down. You could even consider it a braking exercise. But it's not good because it ruins my steering. And because of that, I have to go backward and interrupt my training. Last year, this didn't happen so often. Despite that, I still think I can do the training sessions with good quality, and that's what's important. We supplement the 2 daily kayak sessions with running and gym workouts. I believe in this, and we're sticking to what we've thought was good over the past few years, and we're continuing to do so. In other words, I believe in hard work. The environment is indeed splendid, so I can train and live my daily life in a beautiful green environment, which is very important to me, because I love nature, and the good weather has arrived here. Although, for example, During today's training, it was 13 degrees Celsius, and I was kayaking in heavy rain, but you have to get used to this as well, since it can happen at competitions, and there have been countless examples of it. So I don't have a problem with that either, and I'm really happy that the beach is next to us. A little bit of salty air doesn't hurt, and it's nice to walk out to the sea and look at its beautiful blue color in my free time. It's not a disadvantage. Also, when the sea is calm, I can paddle out, and I really enjoy the time I spend there.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the work you've done so far?
Let's say an 8, because as I said, we were able to do the 2 daily water sessions. I did the running sessions on the treadmill because these 5-star hotels along the coast are closed off with large fences, and the area is too small for me to run the X kilometers I usually do, 6 to 7 kilometers, either leisurely or with a program. The paths are also winding, and I don't like that, but with the treadmill, the good thing is I can do incline, and then I can get my heart rate up faster. So I can supplement the endurance work done during the water sessions a bit with the runs. Regarding strength and conditioning sessions, there are a lot of people in the gym, both the tourists, retired old people, and the nations here. Or not here, but the nations who have come here, kayakers and canoeists. They occupy the gym and make it a bit difficult to train in peace, or for the coach to put together the circuit training and strength training sessions that should be done in peace. But this training camp isn't primarily about that. It's about being able to do the water work, and I've done that so far, and I feel like I will for the last week and a half as well.
You said after Paris that you needed a little rest, to let what happened sink in, and to reconsider the past period, and to think about whether you'd even continue kayaking. We can see the answer now, because you are now paddling and preparing. But how serious was it in your mind that you were weighing whether to continue or rest?
I needed a little time, a few weeks, to let the feelings after the Olympics sink in. That happened at home, in my own environment. I spent the rest period in Győr, and so to speak, I went on solitary bike tours, and I went with my family, and during this time, my feelings settled down, and I thought about the future. Since I feel young, and I felt a lot of energy in myself, I didn't have to think too much about whether to continue or not. If I've already put so much work into kayaking since my childhood, then I'll make the most of it. Under the age of 30, I think a person is absolutely young. You could say very young, especially in kayaking. And because of that, I'm continuing until I can be successful. I'll do it as long as I feel good, and as long as professional sports don't hinder me in life, and I find pleasure and joy in the sport. That's the most important thing.
It's also good that you're saying you can still kayak at 30, because I was looking back at the previous Olympic and World Champions, and quite a few of them from the past decades achieved their greatest success at 28, 29, or even over 30. You, on the other hand, became an Olympic champion at 24, and now you're 27. So we could say that your best years are just coming up, right?
Actually, many of the great kayakers of the past said, "Oh, you're still very young, and you'll be at your peak at 30, 31, or 33, or something like that." So I think so too, especially since there are countless examples of many great competitors, Olympic and world champions, who were able to achieve fantastic results, or podium finishes at major competitions, at the age of 35 to 36. And I'm also a late bloomer anyway, so essentially, if I have my health, which I take great care of, then I really believe I can spend many more successful years here. Anathanani.
Overall then, in terms of rest, you needed this little break more mentally than physically.
Well, I needed both. I was able to rest both mentally and physically after the Olympics. I rested for about 2 months, but I spent that time actively, as I already mentioned. I took part in bike tours, and I also kayaked a bit on the Tisza River, so I'm not the type of person who can't even think about kayaking, unlike others. I know there are people like that who say they won't get in a kayak for X weeks or even months, 2 months. I had no problem getting on the water relatively early. Besides, I couldn't even paddle out after the final at the Olympics. So I went home, and a few days later, I went out on the Tisza and had a nice, relaxed 10 kilometers paddle. I also took advantage of the beauty of the Tisza River section in Gayor, and I spent a little time doing some water training there, but it obviously didn't have the typical training character. I jazzed it up a bit, and that also helped me relax. I didn't go on any trips. I spent my rest period in and around Győr. I also met with the part of my family I hadn't had a chance to see during the summer, or even in the long months before the Olympics.
Was your first time back in the boat after the Olympics a special one? Or was it like any other time?
It was not special, because I did not stretch or cool down after the Olympic final, and there was no massage either. So when I get on the water a few days later, I felt like the movement was a bit sluggish. This feeling was temporary though. So it is very important that a person does not get out of a competition in a way that they do not cool down or stretch afterwards, etc. So kayaking felt a bit bad and uncomfortable at first, but it was nonetheless important that I did so, because while doing so, I managed to re-evaluate certain things and resolve certain feelings inside of me. So that little paddle I did at home after the Olympics was important.
You also said before that from now on you'll plan ahead year by year. Do you already have a goal for this year that you'd like to achieve?
Yes. I also said that I'd like to compete in a marathon, or at least in a marathon selection first, and then maybe compete at an international level. But if I'm correctly informed, you have to choose between flat water and marathon distances, so I've stayed with flat water. And so I'm waiting for the selection competition at the beginning of May, where I'll start in the K1 1000 meters and K1 500m, and see what my strength will be enough for, and if I can qualify for somewhere with the form I'll be able to bring. Actually, I haven't thought about team boats now, but I think that will happen on its own after the selection. Whether I'll get into a team boat, or if I'll compete in individual races this year, instead of in pairs or fours. Those things will become clear then. So I would really name these two events, the K1 500m and K1 1000 meters, and I'd like to enter all the races that are a possibility for me, as many as possible.
You're so modest about qualifying for an international competition. Given your past successes, one would think you'd naturally be focused on the international level, but you're still starting from the national selection level. You won the K1 1000 meters in 19 and 22. This is the King's race. Besides you, only Géza Csapó has also won the K1 1000 meters twice. This puts you in a very small and elite group that also includes Ferenc Tsitsipas, Gyula Torok, and György Kolonix. No Hungarian has ever won the K1 1000 meters World Championship 3 times, and you have the chance to be the first. Does this motivate you?
Actually, I don't really care about collecting as many World Championship titles as possible. An Olympic title or an Olympic medal is obviously a completely different category. I've realized this in the past few years, and the feeling there is different as well. So winning an Olympic gold is different from winning a bronze medal. So I don't really want to collect these major titles, but at the major international competitions I do manage to qualify for, I want to finish as high as possible, and I want to win in a way that I was able to push myself to the limit. The huge amount of training that I put in every day and was able to do, and then when I got to the final at an international competition, I want to feel that I truly gave everything I had and that nothing held me back, whether it was the wind conditions, the temperature, or something mental that would have prevented me. And that's the most important thing for me, to cross the finish line feeling like I won the race or did well and was able to give everything I had. Essentially, I feel a painful feeling and that's good.
Since you mentioned the Olympic medals, you've entered a very interesting elite group with Ádám Varga last year, because, besides you two, only Mihály, Hesz and Géza Csapó were able to win 2 Olympic medals in this event. So from this perspective as well, what you and Ádám achieved is special. We refer to the K1 1000 meters as the King's Race, which is a very noble designation for this event and for good reason. Obviously, does the K1 1000 meters have a special meaning for you compared to other events? Because we do see you in other events. You mentioned the K1 500m, for example. But does the K1 1000 meters generally mean something special to you?
Of course, I still believe that the K1 1000 meters is the most noble event in men's kayaking, and among the individual events. I think this because this 3 minutes and 30 seconds, let's say plus or minus, is a distance that is very difficult to complete, because we start with an extremely hard start, then we barely slow down our pace, and at the end, we give everything we have. So a little bit of tactics is needed as well, but it's harder than the K1 500m, and I think the K1 1000 meters requires more serious preparation from a training perspective than the 500 meters. The 500 meters is also very tough, but in the 1000 meters, you can get lactic acid much more easily, and it hurts much more. It's a more painful feeling to cross the finish line, and that's why I think it's such a big deal when someone can excel in the K1 1000 meters, because it requires more serious preparation than the shorter distances.
The qualification system is currently being reformed. There's no final word on it yet, but we already know certain things, for example, that several events will count towards earning a quota. Have you dealt with this part already? Have you talked to your coach, your mother, about it, or are you not really concerned with this yet?
I understand that this quota system thing is still new. I haven't really dealt with it yet. I'd rather wait to see how the competitions at the beginning of the year go, and then when the competition season has started, this quota system will become more real. I haven't really gotten into this, and I haven't dealt with it in my free time, and I don't plan to. It will happen on its own depending on how the competitions go.
Is it the same with your opponents at the international level? I'm asking primarily because we know that you don't really care who you're racing against in a heat, since your obvious goal is to win. But do you think about who you might meet? How might the field change? Is anyone taking a break? Is a new young person coming up? Do these things concern you?
Actually, they don't concern me at all. So before the races, finals, etc., I don't even look at who's competing. And I don't even know a lot of the competitors. This isn't necessarily a good thing, of course. I know the really big names, but I don't usually look at who's been training for the race beforehand, or who's competing on a given day. So I do absolutely respect every competitor, every opponent who puts in the effort and gives everything they have and races the distance fairly. So that's pretty much it. They don't bother me at all.
If we go back a little bit here to Balint, Turkey, what's also really intense here, I think, is the dining, because anyone who goes into the dining area takes part in a gastronomic tour. We know that you pay a lot of attention to nutrition, and the selection here is really intense. How much are you able to hold yourself back? Because we notice on ourselves that we have to try everything. But how do you handle this?
The food here is truly fantastic, and every dish they put in front of us, from breakfast to dinner, the selection is mind-bogglingly huge. I think a professional athlete doesn't need this, and I can't eat as disciplined as I should, and as my daily preparation would require. I see this with the other competitors as well. They allow themselves to eat more calorie-rich food, so I do too, and the sweets. There's an insane amount of sweets, but there you also have to choose what's still acceptable. For example, a baklava. They put a lot of nuts or pistachios in there, so I'd say that's acceptable. It would be better if they made it with honey. I think they make it with a sugar syrup, which isn't completely good, so I think I see through the system.
How do you relax and unwind here? What can you do to recharge?
The beach is 100 meters away from us here, so when I have a rest day, for example, Saturday afternoon, Sunday, or maybe Wednesday afternoon if I get it, then I go out to the beach and I lie down, or I sunbathe, not for hours of course. I listen to the sound of the waves as they crash against the shore, and I walk on the sandy beach. It's also good for my foot arch. There are a lot of pebbles there and I step on them too. I really enjoy it. So I think these pebbles also massage certain trigger points. So it's really good. And let's say, walking on the sandy beach, while the waves are coming in and hitting my feet, is also a great way to ground myself. So I spend 15 to 20 minutes like that, and it re-energizes and relaxes me. That's what my rest consists of. And also, I sit down on a sun lounger, where there's peace and quiet, and I read.
Besides you, the national canoe team is also here. How do you get along with them? How much do you see them? If I'm correct, you've already played some beach volleyball together, for example.
Yes, there was a little beach volleyball game on a Sunday, although my sacrum felt it a bit afterwards. Of course, it didn't hinder my work. I was able to do what I needed to, but you really have to be careful about that. So professional sports are very complex from this perspective, that a person can be tempted or distracted by other activities outside of training. We could play for hours here, we're young, but obviously, jumping in that sand, changing positions, all these are still physical, and they don't necessarily fit into a rest day, especially for us kayakers and canoeists, whose lower backs are sensitive, because of all the rotation we do during training. Anyway, I get along very well with the canoeists. There were new people I hadn't really known before. I got to know them too, and there's a very good team here besides me. Both the guys and the girls are very nice people, and I'm glad that I really feel good in the sport of kayaking and canoeing here, and everyone is respectful and gets along well with each other. It's good to see that they are training well together, a team.
My final question is, what do you wish for yourself in 2025?
I'd like to qualify for the European and World Championships in either the K1 1000 meters or K1 500m. And if that happens, to finish as high on the podium as possible.
Well, we wish you the same, Balint. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the remaining weeks and days here, and then we will be waiting for you at home and for the competitions.
Thank you for being here.
Csónakház, a Magyar Canoe Szövetség hivatalos podcast műsora. Legendák, bajnokok, reménységek és minden, ami kajakkenú.